a minute before and maybe a full minute afterwards. Like the audio was live, the camera was live.
Be careful.
Nothing happened.
Yeah,
But
thankfully.
you just never know.
Be
you know.
careful.
So it was on before they were prepared
On
to,
before they were started and then
Yeah,
still
gotta be-
on after. And that's hard. It's sometimes hard, especially over there. They don't have a very robust staff.
yeah.
All right.
What was I gonna ask? Is this all right to have this here, you think, or should, okay.
It looks fine.
So when I bring you up the questions, since you're not over here this time, why don't you just email them to me?
And on the recycling center, I mean, you've seen my email on that. I'm not gonna go into that much detail, but is my rationale pretty sound in terms of the,
Yeah.
of the criteria that you use to keep it closed?
It's
Plus,
just the nature of it is just a
and it's
closed
really not,
order
it's not really
position,
considered
and
an
it's not
essential activity. Yeah,
right.
and same thing with the brush side, right?
Right.
And we, yeah, I mean, we're not opening that, and I think primarily it's because of that order that, even though I know you reached that decision before the order came out on
Right.
Sunday, but once they really defined the essential activities, doesn't fall into that category.
No, and we want to lead by example. I
Right,
think.
yeah, it's a good point.
I saw that Johnson County closed all their basketball courts and tennis courts.
So they had an issue yesterday in Prairie Village about pickleball. A group of
Right.
Pickleballers.
Right.
And so we're gonna watch that.
Steve said he had a little bit of an issue, right? The pickleballers
Right.
were upset because we closed it. Yeah.
I am ready. Just signal me when you want me to start.
Can start, Melissa.
All right, we're ready.
Good morning, fellow citizens in Leavenworth, Kansas. Welcome to my second Facebook Live Town Hall that I am conducting as the mayor of Leavenworth. As I said last week, very briefly, I was planning to do this 2.5 months ago, and the first one was scheduled for last Friday. And but in terms of what's happened over the last 2 or 3 weeks, obviously the subject and the focus of that face group, rightly so, is on coronavirus, COVID-19, what's going on within the community and the city's fight against the spread of this virus. And so that's going to be the focus again today. And if there are questions that come up on other subjects, that's fine, but really the purpose today is to maybe drill down in a little more detail in terms of the things that we've found out in the last week and that we're aware of, and maybe any adjustments to how the city is delivering its services. And what I'm going to start off with first is I have a monthly guest column in the Leavenworth Times, and that column for March came out yesterday, so hopefully some of you on this Facebook Live Town Hall have had an opportunity to read that letter. Not going to go over all of it, but the beginning of it did summarize, and I emphasize the word summarize, the essential aspects of the county health department's order that they released, emergency health order that they released on the 22nd of March, which was last Sunday. And so that's, in about a minute, I'm just going to review what was in my letter there so everyone has the same baseline in terms of what the expectations are of the county and the city with respect to essential activities, staying at home, essential businesses, that type of thing. And I said I will provide an update on the provision of city services. And we're going to talk a little bit about what I'm aware of with respect to state and state government is doing with respect to trying to help our small business owners and our nonprofits. There's some programs that I'll briefly review, and there's some things that the city is doing also. So I'll take a minute or two to talk about that. And then we'll get to the questions, and I do urge you to submit your questions. We have some questions already here that we can start off with once I'm finished, if there aren't any that come in. But this is really for you and for anything that's on your mind. And we'll do the best we can to answer it, and if we don't have an answer, we will, after the Facebook Live Town Hall, we'll find out the answer and then post it to the city's website. So this is what I talked about at the beginning portion of my letter, and this was the order that was released by the local county health officer, Mr. Jamie Miller. And what I did, they also put out a press release and from their Joint Information Center, and it was a good way to kind of summarize the essential aspects of the order. And the order was entitled Emergency Public Health Order Requiring Residents to Stay at Home Except for Essential Needs. And the JIC, the Joint Information Center Public Information Release, contains the following language, which is a summary of the essential elements of the order. The order directs all residents to remain at their place of residence except to conduct an essential activity, which is defined as an activity or task essential to an individual's health or safety, or the health and safety of their family or household members. Individuals may leave their residence only to perform an essential activity. People at high risk of severe illness from COVID-19 are urged to stay in their residence except as necessary to seek medical care. Individuals who are sick may leave their residence only as necessary to seek or receive medical care in accordance with guidance from public health officials. Everyone shall practice social distancing while performing essential activities by remaining at least 6 feet of distance from everyone other than household members. And then the Joint Information Center at the County Public Information Release goes on to state the following about the emergency health order. All business and operations in Leavenworth County, except essential businesses, which are defined as organizations that provide the goods and services needed for an essential activity, are required to cease all activities. For clarity, businesses may also continue operations consisting exclusively of employees or contractors performing activities at their own residences, that is, working from home. And so this Joint Information Center Public Information Release and the full emergency public health order can be found on the Leavenworth County's webpage. And I'm not going to read off the full URL, but that is in my letter. That was in the Leavenworth Times yesterday. And I just urge all citizens, if they have the time, to read both documents, especially the health order, since it contains details of the specific essential activities that citizens can undertake, as well as the type of businesses considered essential and therefore permitted to continue operations. Let me just talk, there's a good website, it's the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and they have a COVID-19 webpage on that website, and they have a daily public update. Now, granted, this is a little bit old because they've updated at 11 a.m. every day. So this is from yesterday, March 26, 2020, and it's a public update. And at that time in Kansas, there were 168 total positive cases, and the number of deaths was 3. The demographics for those 168 positive cases were female 78, male 90, and Leavenworth had at that time, and as of 4 p.m. yesterday afternoon, 12 positive people who tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. And I think that put us in like 4th or 5th as far as the highest number within the state. Johnson County has the highest number of people testing positive with 59, Wyandotte next with 34, and Sedgwick County, which is the county that Wichita is in, had 16, and then Douglas 13, and then Leavenworth 12. And this was as of, this was as of 11 a.m. yesterday from the state website, and then 4 p.m. the number 12 was confirmed by the county public health officer. That just gives you a little snapshot of what's going on within the state and local situation in terms of just the overall statistic. The Leavenworth County Public Health Officer, Mr. Jamie Miller, said he was happy to see, in addition to other things, he said he was happy to see our positive results did not increase for yesterday's update. So from Wednesday to Thursday, the number stayed at 12 for Leavenworth County in terms of positive test results. I'm going to And I've got the city manager, Mr. Paul Kramer, here with me, and he and I tag teamed this last week, and we'll take it the same way, take the same approach for today's Facebook Live Town Hall. I've got Mr. Taylor Tedder, who's monitoring the feed, and as you submit questions, he'll record them and get them to the city manager and myself. And also, in about a half an hour, I have the Leavenworth Police Chief Pat Kitchens here, who I want to take 5 or 10 minutes to just give an overview of what his department is doing to enforce the county's emergency health order, things that he's seeing, and any advice he has for citizens. And he'll also take questions from people who are participating in this town hall. But let me go over quickly kind of a review of where we are as far as the city's services. Overall city facilities. At this time, the city's facility closure has been extended through April 23rd in accordance with the stay-at-home order that I've just been talking about that was issued by the Leavenworth County Health Officer. This includes not only City Hall and the Community Center, but all city facilities of all types, including the Recycling Center, Brush Site, Park Shelters, Performing Arts Center, Dog Park, Municipal Court, and the Municipal Service Center. Recycling Center. Over the last week, I've gotten a few emails on that, and that's a very critical, I know, activity and an important activity for our environment and also for the quality of life within the city of Leavenworth. But the city manager and his staff, and I talked about this last week during last week's town hall, went through a process of really, with the overall criteria of really using an abundance of caution, that we didn't think that at this point that, first of all, the recycling is not an essential activity. While it's a very an activity that we encourage, it doesn't fall into that category of being an essential activity. And the way that it works with the cars lining up just outside the facility or maintenance service center, they're in the vicinity of a neighborhood that's, you know, very close to the back of the maintenance service center, and that concerns us, just the volume of cars that would be near, you know, houses that belong to our residents. And then going in, I'm just concerned, and I don't know exactly, but if there's more than one car in there, there's a chance that, you know, people could get out and mingle and get within the 6 feet social distancing requirement that we have. And then the other thing is that some of these items, you know, if somebody is infected and doesn't know about it, and they've gone and donated these, not donated, but dropped off these items at the recycling center, they could have, you know, they could have the residue of, you know, the coronavirus, and so that's a little bit of a risk to our staff in terms of, you know, monitoring and, you know, making sure that the receptacles and everything are squared away. So we've made the decision at this point to keep the recycling center closed. The city manager and I will take a look at that every week, and if there's some innovative and efficient way that we could figure out how to do that, you know, we would at least consider it. But and I'll talk about it each and every town hall that we have. But for now, the recycling center will stay closed. Trash bag delivery. The city partners with the Lions Club to distribute bags citywide. Due to the circumstances created by COVID-19, the Lions Club did not have the labor required to complete the service. However, they have rescheduled, and right now they plan to complete trash bag delivery on May 30th. Spring cleanup. Primarily due to social distancing restrictions, the city has canceled the annual spring cleanup event. The kickoff event on April 18th has been canceled, as well as the document shredding that was scheduled. We are also not going to ask the groups already signed up to work in their assigned grids at this time. However, this event has become a city tradition and a way to clean up and express pride in our community. So we will be looking for ways to do something later this year. We are going ahead with ordering t-shirts with the expectation of handing them out when we conduct the spring cleanup much later in the year. Farmers Market. Although the county emergency health order designated farmers markets as essential, therefore able to operate as an authorized event, the Leavenworth Farmers Market operates in Haymarket Square, right in the middle of our city, and which is a city facility, and city facilities are currently closed. Therefore, we are not allowing reservations to be made at this time or official events to occur at city facilities. The first farmers market is not until May 2nd, but at this time, we cannot commit to it being open on that day at its location, which is Haymarket Square. During the last week of April, we should be in a much better position to determine whether the farmers market should open on the 2nd of May. We'll keep you informed. Easter egg hunt. The event is canceled, but we have 10,000 eggs that we need to use. So the city is working on an event to be held when appropriate, where we can get those 10,000 eggs to the children in our community. We don't know what that looks like at this minute, but we will provide updates as we think through the best way to conduct this this annual and this very significant and fun event for our children in the community, but it'll be later in the year. Public library. The public library director has been, about every 2 days, they've been sending out a good library service update. So if you have a library card and you've got an email, it's coming to your email address. Just let me briefly review a couple of things that he had in his library service update as of yesterday. And the public library is closed. Just to reiterate that they've been closed, and that's the way it'll continue. We have members of the staff, the library directors and members of his staff working from home on things that they can work on from home, but obviously that's not all the things that have to be done in a library. Library cards that expire in 2020 have been updated to expire in the same date in 2021. If your card expired before 2020, the library will renew a library card over the phone during our new service hours. Callers must be able to confirm some identification information. The library's book drop is open for return of all materials, no matter what format. If an item is too large to fit, please keep it until we reopen. Nothing will be due before the 20th of May. And for your information, the library has not charged any fines for this year. The current stay-at-home order expires at midnight on April 23rd. If that changes, our schedule will follow suit. We will have to delay the opening at least a day, no matter what date if is considered when the public library could come back online. I think that's about it for the library. If there's a few more points in his library service update dated March 26, 2020, but I think that's where I'll finish with that. Assisting our small businesses. Assistant City Manager assisted, which is Mr. Taylor Tedder, assisted Net Worth Kansas and Department of Commerce in providing scoring and feedback for the Hospitality Industry Relief Emergency Fund loan program established by Governor Laura Kelly. The program allows for loans up to $20,000 at 0% interest for 3 years for the term of 3 years to businesses in the restaurant, bar, lodging, conference, or event industries. Formal award announcements have not been made, but there is a distinct possibility for local businesses will be awarded funding through this program. So I know that there were a number of restaurants and people in the hospitality business that submitted and applied for these loans, and that's kind of the latest update we have. As we learn more, we'll post it on I know that Leavenworth Main Street will post it on their website, and we'll try to post it on our COVID-19 information webpage that's part of the city's website. Network Kansas has allowed our local e-community, Grow Leavenworth County Development Corporation, to allow any loan recipient in Leavenworth County that has received a loan through any of the various Network Kansas loan programs a 4-month interest-only deferral on their loan payments. And that's the program that's currently in place now. Our current loan portfolio has injected over $2.3 million into the local business community since 2011. Through the sale of state tax credits. The principal payments that are not made as a result of this program that I just talked about, this 4-month interest-only deferral, loan program will be amortized at the end of the original loan term, allowing the businesses greater cash flow flexibility in our recently affected economic climate. Several businesses have already taken us up on this offer. And finally, the Small Business Grant Program, frequently referred to as the Facade Program, is still available and active. Assistant City Manager Mr. Tedder has received some inquiries from businesses looking to complete projects while their offices are closed, and we anticipate receiving some applications in the near future. At this point, we'll transition to questions. Do we have any questions from Facebook's participants yet?
Yeah, we have
Okay.
one or two. For anybody just tuning in, I'm the city manager, Paul Kramer. I'm going to go through some questions we have, and then we've also had a couple of questions submitted through our different departments over the last couple of days, so we're going to try to hit on those. Again, if you have questions as we're going along, please submit them in the Facebook response, and we'll get to them. The first question comes from Christine. She said, is construction considered an essential business? And I can respond to that because we have heard from the county and the county health officer, yes is the answer to that. Still restricted to all of the rules of social distancing, hand washing. There's a set of rules in the order for businesses to follow, having to have sanitary, hand sanitizer and some other measures in place. But yes, construction is considered an essential business during this time. Go through a couple other questions we have as we monitor the questions on the Facebook Live. Although City Hall is closed, are we able to purchase trash bags? The answer to that is no, not at this time. The two locations you can purchase trash bags, City Hall and the Service Center, are closed, along with all other city facilities until at least April 23rd. We'll see what happens at the expiration of the order. We understand that people rely on these trash bags. We've gotten quite a few calls. The Lions Club has stepped up, and they're going to try on May 30th to deliver those bags, and then we anticipate quite a rush once we open those city facilities to purchase those. So please bear with us. We just couldn't find a way to accommodate selling those trash bags at this time. The mayor mentioned brush site. We're getting a lot of questions about the brush site. A little of that is because before the order came out, and we have to apologize a little bit, before the order came out, we had made the decision that the brush site could be contained in a way that it could be a safe use of city facilities. When the order came out and really stressed essential business and social distancing and stay at home, we felt that in the spirit of that, leading by example, that the brush site needed to be closed during the stay-at-home order. So the answer to that is no, it will not be reopened until at least April 23rd. The second part of that question is, will you still extend the offer of 30 days free for residents? I don't see why we wouldn't do that. That's in the authority of my office to do. So I think you could plan on that. So please gather your brush. If you don't have to, and you like using the brush site, don't put it out in your trash. That's just more work for our refuse, but please feel free to do that. That is an option. But the brush site will open, and we'll go ahead and make it free for those first 30 days after we reopen it. We have a question of, we covered the recycling center. Again, please bear with us. My family uses the recycling center. A lot of our commissioners do, our staff members, we use that. It's a great community asset. Just the layout of it, plus the order of the April 23rd of the stay-at-home essential business, just made that not wise for us to reopen at this time. We have a question that we got through, I think this was our refuse department. A lot of questions on trash pickup remaining the same, whether there's going to be any changes. There is no plan to change refuse service at all. We have excellent employees in our refuse department, and they're doing a great job. So they will continue on your schedule. There'll be no schedule changes, and we'll continue that service as is through the duration. We had two questions here that I'll probably ask the police chief to elaborate on when it's his turn. Will a curfew be put in place? I think the chief talked on Tuesday night at our commission meeting, if you had a chance to listen to that those type of steps take a higher level of order to come down either from the county or the governor or such, but I'll let the chief talk about any potential actions like that or what would what it would require to have those kind of things. Finally, we have a question about which city functions and/or services are not affected by the shutdown. That's a really good question. Essential functions that we do for the public, such as refuse, roads, continuing on projects, public safety are continuing. But also, what you don't see is that City Hall still operates every day. Our finance department is still processing payments, running the budget, paying our vendors, putting out bids for projects. We have many bids out right now for stormwater projects, our summer mow contracts, for both our parks and properties around the city that we mow. Those are all still going forward. We are still trying to put as much business out into the community as we can through service contracts or purchasing items. So that takes all of our finance employees. Just to give you a little look kind of behind the curtain, we have reduced City Hall workforce substantially, but we do have a lot of employees who can work from home based on the technology that is around, advances we've made over the last couple years. Our HR department is still processing applications and posting job positions and conducting interviews in a virtual space. So we are learning, just like our businesses and our communities are learning, on doing as much as we can do with in compliance with the order and trying to continue business. Same with the city clerk's office. We are conducting ordinance reviews, getting ready to put new changes in place. Our planning department, yesterday we met with a developer. We're reviewing plats. Our building department is reviewing building plans and doing inspections and still out there in the field. So the city facilities are closed, and I say the city business continues, and it does at every level. So we'll continue to do that. I'll let the chief talk about animal control a little bit when he gets here in a couple minutes, and some other city functions, but city business continues every day. The mayor hit on this, and I don't have much to add, but there's a question, I think, from one of our business owners in town. What resources are available to citizens and businesses affected by COVID-19? Businesses have a couple options. Please, through yourself or through your membership in the chamber or Main Street, try to keep abreast of a lot of the state programs that are out there. You can also reach out to Taylor. Taylor Tedder is our assistant city manager. He also heads our economic development efforts. He's well versed on what's going on. Day to day, he keeps up with the new programs. He's assisted a lot of businesses in getting deferrals on loan payments and such. So please reach out to him through Facebook, through the city's website, and we'll try to get you connected with that. If you are a member of the Chamber of Commerce or Main Street, maybe go there first so we don't overwhelm Taylor, but he certainly also works with those organizations. Let me see if we have any other submitted questions.
Let me just follow up on that, because the last part of, or the last paragraph or two of my letter in my guest column in the Leavenworth Times yesterday, it talked about our small businesses and by extension nonprofits. And this is what I said. I said, I am cognizant of the economic difficulty, if not distress, that many citizens and businesses are experiencing because of the current health crisis. With the closure of non-essential businesses in response to the national, state, and local fight against COVID-19, the very livelihoods of many owners and their employees are threatened. My message is simple. The city manager, my fellow commissioners, and I as the mayor will do everything we can possibly do to keep you abreast of federal and/or state legislation and programs that might provide relief. And for those that, we have, like the Network Kansas information that I put out earlier, that we have, a stake in, and that we, work to the best advantages of our citizens. We'll continue to do that. But I think the coin of the realm with respect to this particular crisis is pertinent and is communicating pertinent and relevant information. And so it really, in this particular area, it's critical. I know that probably today the House of Representatives will pass the the bill that was passed in the Senate the other day, and it'll go to the president, and if he doesn't sign it today, hopefully he signs it, you know, by tomorrow or Sunday or whenever it's ready. I know as soon as it's ready, I'm sure he'll sign it. But one of the things that's in there is about $350 billion for small businesses to take advantage of very, very good terms with respect to loans, 0% interest loans, very lenient payback periods, and in the final analysis, the possibility that they might, those loans might even be forgiven into the future. But my point is, we will post that link to that particular legislation, that bill, when the president signs it on our COVID-19 information portion of the city's website. But I know that there's going to be a lot of information to wade through, and I know that Leavenworth Main Street, Wendy Scheit, the director, she's got some people, Mr. Ken Bateman, and another gentleman who helps our local businesses on a weekly basis, where they could provide help in terms of wading through that legislation, and if people have questions, if our business owners have questions, they're going to be able to help answer those questions and maybe even give some definitive guidance on any documentation that would need to be filed to apply for these loans. More to come on that. We've got the Congress has to finish passing it and the president has to sign it, but I think that'll happen very soon. And then, did you have another?
We have maybe do 3 more and then turn it
Sure.
over to the chief.
Yes.
That
Okay.
sound good?
That's fine.
Okay, so we have a question from Zach asks, what will the city do for paid softball fees? We will reimburse all fees paid for programs, canceled events, postponed. So you'll have to bear with us a little bit. There's quite a few of those, but we will process those as quickly as we can. For all fees, whether you've paid for a room rental, a softball fee, for a league fee, we will reimburse those fees. Jessica asks, is there a point of contact to speak with to get in touch regarding essential items to Leavenworth families in need? Further information needs clarification, please. Very important topic. I'm a Leavenworth resident. I would hesitate to give you a single point of contact. United Way has a 211 number. That's a invaluable referral resource. And then I would ask that you go through the recognized agencies in our community, because all of them serve a different need. Catholic Charities helps with rent and utilities if that's where you want to get involved. The Leavenworth Mission Food Pantry has food offerings. The Alliance Against Family Violence has needs. So we have these organizations in town that provide different services, but all valuable services. So I would hesitate to send you in one direction. Maybe the United Way 211 is a good umbrella way to get started. But certainly find a way. If you're a member of a church, they may have contacts for groups or organizations that are helping different populations of the community in different ways. And then we have a couple more, but I'll just do one more before we get to the police chief, and maybe we'll have a few minutes at the end to gather the rest of the questions. Will the health department or city announce the name, place of employment, or location of positive tests? We've gotten this question quite a few times, and the answer to that is no. The city doesn't have that information. I don't have that information. The police chief doesn't have that information. The mayor doesn't have that information. There's HIPAA implications in that. That's a decision of the county health officer, but the city does not, nor do we want that information to have. That's personal information, and that's the decision of the health department and the county, and there's laws, but we do not have that information.
Yeah, they talked about that. Tuesday, the Leavenworth County Commissioners received an update Tuesday on the county's response to the coronavirus health crisis, and the county health officer, Mr. Jamie Miller, gave an update, and that's one of the things he talked about. Right. And the quote in the paper from, I think it was Wednesday, was Mr. Miller's, in addition to what the city manager just said, which is what he talked about, but the quote that went into the paper was, Mr. Miller said, releasing information about where people who have tested positive live may result in a false sense of security to people from other areas of the county. So in addition to what the city manager said, that's something that Mr. Miller shared with the county commissioners and during that meeting they had on Tuesday. Do we want to transition to the police chief now?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to our police chief, Pat Kitchens. Chief, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll spend some time talking about how we dealt with the health order and businesses that were affected by that. I talked a little bit about this on Tuesday, that our plan, which we've incorporated and spent quite a bit of time on. So Tuesday morning at midnight, the new order and the new rules went into effect. We did some assessment in the community about businesses that potentially may or may not be affected by this, and then took some notes, came back, looked again at the health order to make sure that we were all operating from the same playbook. On Wednesday morning, from about 8 o'clock to noon, I had a small contingent of police officers visit about 15 businesses that we had some question about. I was very satisfied about those interactions. Almost everybody to a person had seen the health order and was aware of the health order. They had reviewed it and determined which particular provision they believed they fell under and allowed them to remain open. We had good discussions with them. There was a lot of discussion by the business owner with the health department. There was a lot of discussion by officers that were working on this with the health department. So by and large, based on that, I was very satisfied that almost everybody was in compliance with what we understood the health order to be. The Joint Information Center at the health department has a law enforcement representative there during the course of the operations. And so that was helpful to the staff there, so that if there were questions or concerns or interpretation issues, they were able to make those referrals, and that person is the Undersheriff Jim Shirley. We had a lot of discussion with him, and so again, by and large, I'm very satisfied. We did receive a few complaints from citizens in the community about a particular business that may or may not be in compliance with the provisions of the health order. We went out, we followed up on that. Again, we did not find any violations. I think the most important thing was that there were genuine, legitimate efforts by our business owners to make absolutely certain that they were following those provisions, which has generally always been the case, but in particular here. So I was very satisfied by that. We will, at this point, transition out of going out and visiting with businesses, and we will scale back those operations now. If a person or somebody in the community believes that a business might be in violation, they are encouraged to call either the police department or the health department, and then we will go out and conduct some assessment about whether or not they're in violation potentially. We did not take any enforcement action, which I'm very glad to see that we didn't need to do that. We reserve the right to do that, but that is not what we want to do. And at this point, we do not feel like we're compelled to do that. So I'm very satisfied by that. Talk a little bit about the effect of this event on the law enforcement profession, and particularly, but the Leavenworth Police Department. It's important for the public to understand that today the same number of police officers are on the streets that were on the streets before then. Our operations have not changed. We still respond to calls. We still are answering the 911 phone calls. There may be a slight change in the way that we've done that, in that we're having our dispatchers do a little bit more triage of calls. So for example, if someone calls and they need to file a theft report, you might get a question or two from the dispatcher about health-related issues. Does anybody have a fever, or is anybody suffering symptoms that we might associate with that? And so based on those responses, we may try and deal with things over the telephone, or we may alter slightly the way that we respond, but we will handle those calls as effectively as we can. And so that's how we're dealing with that. And the operations have not changed. It's something in line with Mr. Kramer said. We've scaled down a little bit of our civilian staff at the Justice Center to practice the social distancing aspect of the health order, and so that's going well. We're maintaining the workload and sufficient products at the police department like we always do. Our dispatch facility is functioning, answering calls, and so I'm very satisfied by that. I want to talk a little bit about animal control. Animal control does remain functioning. We still have an occasional call where a dog is caught running at large, or there might be a bite call or something like that. We're still dealing with those. What we are not allowing, though, is the public to come into the facility and access it in the event that they might want to consider adoption. Now, adoption is still available and rescues are still available. We're just trying to encourage that to be done over the telephone. You can call and make an appointment or visit online to see what animals are available for adoption. And then we can do that on a one-on-one basis and still sort of hopefully get to the same goal, which is continuing to adopt and rescue animals out of the facility so we can find them a permanent home. But other than that, business as usual for the police department. We're still functioning and working very hard to keep the public safe. So if there aren't any other issues that you feel like we might address, I can answer some questions or talk about something different.
Anything else with the questions?
Just in terms of the overall situation with respect to law enforcement, has there been any things pretty much the same as they were before the virus, or can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So again, the operations of the police department have not been affected. We are still functioning in the way that we always do. There have been some administrative things that have taken place behind the scenes. For example, we've been impacted the police academy. They've shut down operations at the police academy and through the month of May. And so that will delay some of our officers. We had officers at the academy, they were sent home. And so we have had them back at the police department resuming their on-the-job training aspect. And so that's still progressing, but just like everybody, there's been impact and we're having to play our role in that. So there have been some of those things that the public behind the scenes might not be aware of, but it has impacted that sort of thing. But we still have the same number of police officers, detectives are still working cases, we're still responding to calls and doing that. It's some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that we've been affected a little bit.
Okay. Do we have?
I think we do have one police question related to, I think Jennifer asked, can we still get fingerprinting done by appointment?
Not right now. That is something that is not essential. Where generally speaking, we make ourselves available a few hours on Thursdays for people who need fingerprints for job applications, school teachers. There's a few categories of folks that we do that for a small fee. We're not doing that right now, and that is requires physical contact by the detective to touch the person. And so we're not going to do that for now, but we'll evaluate that when the health order expires. So on the 23rd of next month, if that expires and we're able to return, we'll do that. If there is some critical emergency, we might be able to accommodate that, but that would have to be a special accommodation based on an appointment. But generally, no, we're not doing that until the order expires.
Chief, can you comment on curfew?
Right. So there was some discussion when the health order changed and it was enhanced about law enforcement's role in determining whether or not people are traveling in the community or out in the community to an essential job. For example, people going to a gas station or Walmart, those are clearly essential and people are still going to work. We are not pulling people over and asking for paperwork that identifies whether or not they're going to an essential function. We are not at that level yet. There's no curfew being imposed. There's been no discussion of curfew being imposed. That is a significant higher level of enforcement that would require almost a federal imposition of that rule. So we're not there yet. This is all about cooperation and encouragement. Whether or not it's late at night or during the day, it's trying to make sure the message is people shouldn't be going out into the community unless it is essential. And so I hope that might address the question of curfew.
I had, what is the current status of the Justice Center?
Right. So the Justice Center is significantly scaled down. It is technically open in this regard. If someone needs to come to the Justice Center, for example, we had a person come visit yesterday to get a copy of an accident report. We can do that, but we can also do that over telephone and email and that sort of thing. And so you can come to the Justice Center, you can expect to go through security and be screened, temperatures and those kinds of things, but what we have been telling people and I'm asking folks to do is call first. Call us and ask us what you have, and then we can make a determination whether or not you need to come down. We can come out and see you anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, courts are severely restricted for emergency operation. Municipal court is not operating. The best advice I have for you, yes, it is technically open, but I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. Call first, ask what's happening, what you're trying to get done, and then we can probably address it that way.
And municipal court, which takes place in the Justice Center, is closed, correct?
Correct. Right.
Let me just really quickly share, our county attorney, Mr. Todd Thompson, sent out a kind of a, I think it may have been on LinkedIn, but I don't know, I got it, and I sent it to my email, and I'll just very briefly give you what he sent out yesterday. And he said, due to the state of emergency declared on March 11th, the anti-profiteering law has taken effect. This law prohibits profiteering on goods and services necessary due to the coronavirus. A price increase exceeding 25% or more on these goods or services that were available on March 11th, or the price for which the same goods or services are available from other sellers in the trade area is seen as unjustified. The fine for violation is $10,000. His office, the county attorney's office, as well as the attorney general's office at the state level, will enforce this law. Anyone with information about the price gouging can call a 1-800 number, 1-800-432-2310, to request a paper complaint form be sent by mail or file a complaint online with the Attorney General's Consumer Protective Division. And there's a website, I won't read it, but he listed it in his little press release yesterday. So I think that's important. Do we have any other questions, Mr. Kramer?
We have two more questions for the chief. How are police officers dealing with shortages of, or is there a shortage of personal protective equipment such as masks?
So police officers in particular, there's a different criteria for EMS and firefighters, but police officers in particular right now are not wearing a mask to respond to a normal call unless we have some information that the person we're dealing with might have symptoms of the COVID-19 virus. We have plenty of rubber gloves and protective equipment that you might see a police officer wearing where you might not. We're doing our best to be a good team player and let nurses and health practitioners have priority over that. We have, within the county, we've stood up the Joint Information Center at the Health Department, and our county manager, Chuck McGaha, and his staff have put together a collective order of new equipment for first responders in the community, and submitted that yesterday, which is a very structured process through the state, and we would have some priority over that. So right now, the Leavenworth Police Department's doing fine on personal protective equipment. We continue to evaluate that every day. Again, I think that the nurses and the health practitioners have a much higher need for that, for the gowns and the masks, and so we'll defer to them. We have gotten a couple of calls, folks who are wanting to sew masks at home out of material and that sort of thing. We would never turn that down. We're greatly appreciative. It's just important to understand that those would not be something that would be effective in the dealing with the COVID-19 virus. But if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it, and we'll probably ask you to take those to folks who are housing residents that are elderly and see if that would be, those are better. We're doing fine right now in terms of our equipment needs and all that, and we're monitoring that every day, though.
Mr. Murray, I guess unless you have any other questions for the chief, we'll let him go back to
Sure.
enforcing the order and running the police department.
How's the morale of the men and women in the police force?
Very good. They're doing very good. They working awful hard.
Right.
They recognize it's a little strange. There's a few less people out in the community, and they're having some time adjusting to that. It's just a little bit different.
Right.
Everybody kind of recognizes that and feels that. The officers that went out yesterday and did the compliance inspections feel very, very bad for the businesses that are affected and are trying their best to convey that to them. But nonetheless, that's our role is enforcement, and so they were very, very satisfied with the reaction of the business owners by and large. Everybody was understanding and compassionate, and not mad at us, which is good. And so everybody at the police department's doing good today, and they'll continue working hard to keep everybody safe.
Well, please pass along the commission's appreciation for their hard charge and their performance of their duties. And we do think about them. We know they, on a day-to-day basis, have a very challenging mission, and certainly in this time frame when we're fighting the spread of this virus, it's can be even more demanding. So we're very, very happy and with their performance, and just tell them to be careful out there in the community. But thanks for coming today.
I will. Thank you, sir.
We have maybe 4 more questions, and then maybe, unless we get a couple more, then some closing thoughts? Sure. Okay. Brittany asks a good question. How do we go about obtaining a building permit? It's a great question. We are still processing building permits, taking building permits. We have building permit applications online on the city's webpage, leavenworthks.org, and it's under the Public Works tab. You can also call the inspections department at 684-0378. We'll put that information on the stream or on the Facebook Live comment section. But again, you can go online and get the permit, and then call the inspections office before you turn it in, and we'll walk you through that process. 684-0378 for building permits, plumbing permits, electrical permits, anything related to permits in the construction or trades. We'll go through there. Bruce asks, again, access to trash bag purchases. I covered that, but it is a popular question, so happy to do it again. You cannot purchase City Hall trash bags at City Hall because City Hall is closed. We get a lot of traffic for those purchases. The building is closed. We are observing essential services. Again, we know that our residents have paid for those. So the Lions Club is going to do those on the 30th, and for those who want to come in and buy extra bags, we just ask you to bear with us until the city reopens its facilities, and then we will be selling bags again. I'm sorry if I don't get this name correct. Twila, potentially. Twyla asks, can anyone be at parks for a family gathering? You can go to the parks, but the 10-person limit, group limit, is still in effect. You can use our shelters if you have a couple people. We are not taking reservations. You can walk on our trails. We encourage people to get outdoors, but you must practice the social distancing and the group limits. So please keep that in mind as we go through the next almost 4 weeks.
And the social distancing is at 6 feet.
6 feet, yeah, that's a good point. And then finally, Barb asks, should essential businesses follow the 10-person limit? It's part of the order, so the answer to that is yes. Now, obviously, you know, we'll hear, what about Walmart, what about Price Chopper? So that doesn't apply there. Restaurants and bars that are still open, that includes their employees. You can't go in anymore to those services, so all those are closed. But everything that's in the order, including those 10-person limits, are still in effect unless there's some sort of waiver or other accommodations made by the county. So I'll make that point real quickly because we've had that question. The city has no control over what's considered essential or non-essential, nor do we have any enforcement of the provisions, or I shouldn't say enforcement, nor do we have any discretion over the provisions of the order. That was done by the county on that one. Let's see here. I think that's the last question we have. Again, the playground equipment is off limits. That is specifically addressed in the order, and that includes if you just have one child. It is completely off limits. It is not subject to the restrictions of the 10-person limit or the social distancing. It is completely off limits. So the final thing I'll say before I turn it over to the mayor for his final thoughts is we heard from the police chief. Keep in mind also that the city has a fire department, and our fire fighters and our fire personnel are still responding. They're still keeping this community safe. We are concerned about them, the effects that a potential infection could have in a quarantine on our ability to provide the services. Those firefighters also provide service to the VA campus. They provide mutual aid to the fort, but they are the primary firefighting service for the city and for the VA campus. So we think about them every day and what they do when they're out responding. And then just finally, more broadly, we've had a lot of, I think, some of the reality is setting in about the length of this. We just ask that, you bear with us. If it's a city issue that you're concerned about, we'll give you the best answer we have. We're still trying to figure this out day to day, hour by hour, on how this is going to affect our operations and how we interact with the public. And then also, we ask you to try to do the same with our local businesses and your citizens at large. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
I'll just make some closing comments. First of all, Leavenworth is quiet. Anybody who's been downtown, there's not very many cars parked downtown, very few cars moving downtown, and it's just quiet, which is different in a certain sense. It's a little bit eerie, but it's a sign of what we've committed to do as a local community in most of the states in the United States of America. So I thank everyone for their sacrifice, for abiding by the provisions of the emergency health order that came out from the county health officer last Sunday. This is the best way in terms of this staying at home, except for those things, those essential activities like going to the grocery store, although I'm pretty sure that at least one of the grocery stores in Leavenworth, you can call, if not both of them, call and order groceries, and you can either pick them up at the grocery store or they'll be delivered. I know, I checked that out with Dillon's the other day. I don't know about Price Chopper, but everyone everybody, most businesses, most industries, us as citizens are adapting our lives to deal with this new normal, which really is a disruption of our everyday lives and our normal economic activity. And right now, that's scheduled to go through midnight on the 23rd of April. And if that changes or gets extended, that'll be a decision of the state and the local county health officer, and the city will take the appropriate action at that time, as we are doing now, based on the order that I mentioned that was promulgated on the 22nd of March and went into effect actually at 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday, the 24th of March. So my kudos to all Leavenworth citizens. You're doing great. You're sacrificing for the larger good, and that says a lot about our society and our local community, our city. And just from a personal standpoint, we do have to set the example as city commissioners, and I've been spending 90%, 95%, 99% of my time at home, and been a little bit busier on email and with my computer, because there are certain emails that reach me from citizens, and I'll respond. I always respond, and with the best answer. If I don't have the answer, I'll send it along to the city manager, who's got contacts throughout the city and the county, and he'll get it to the proper organization to get an answer. And I had mentioned earlier about some of the questions I had about the recycling center. I had 2 or 3 emails on that this week that I provided answers to our citizens on that. There were other things too, such on essential businesses and a few complaints there that I passed along to the city manager. There's actually, and I think we've kind of peaked as far as that goes, because that Tuesday, I think, and maybe Wednesday, there were some concerns and questions about which businesses could stay open and whether any of them got waivers. And I don't think very many did, but there's a number, 913-250-2000, which is at which is that joint information center that I mentioned. If anybody has a question about that, either an individual business owner or a citizen that has a concern that maybe there's a business open that shouldn't be open, and they want to pass that information along to the people at the county in the health department. But from a personal standpoint, the only times that I've gone out, I've gone to the commissary. I'm retired military, so I went to the commissary probably twice within the last 10 days, and I went on Wednesday, I think, and it was at 6 p.m., an hour before they closed, and there weren't very many people in there. A lot of the shelves are not stocked, but I was able to get what I needed for the next week or so. And then, of course, I came to our Tuesday commission meeting where it was myself and Commissioner Leonhard and our 3 other commissioners participated remotely, and that worked out, I thought, pretty well. Our rhythm and everything during the meeting was good. We'll continue to do that, although we don't have another meeting until the 14th of April, I think, correct? But I'll talk about the next Facebook Live Town Hall in a minute. So, and then what else did my wife and I needed to get out of the house yesterday, particularly my wife. She teaches, she's a professor at KU. She teaches online courses. So that part of her life has continued pretty much along the lines of what it was before this COVID-19 health crisis. But she's, just staying at home and not going into KU campus, and her office in Lawrence is starting to get to her. So she needed to get some money. And so we went to the bank, went through the drive-through yesterday, took the dog out with us so she could, stick her head out the window and enjoy the drive up to the bank and then down through 4th Street to Eisenhower. And then we made a turn to the west and once again, not very many cars out, and then a right on 20th Street to come back to our home. But that's the only time she's been out in the last 2 weeks, but we're abiding by this staying at home order and just going out when it's absolutely necessary. Now, last weekend we did take advantage, many of our restaurants are offering either delivery or takeout service where like it's curbside pickup. We did that with one of our restaurants last Saturday. We'll do it again either Saturday or Sunday. So that's allowed, that's part of the order. So, I mean, if you want to do that, you can do that. I'm not, I don't encourage it every day, but if you need to do that, that is allowed, and I will do it again sometime this weekend, either Saturday or Sunday. And the other thing is, this is tough. I'm concerned about everybody's, well-being, their mental health. So reach out, talk to your, maybe your siblings or your children or elsewhere in the United States, and maybe you could pick up the amount just a little more often, making contact with them. I know that my wife and I are doing that with 2 of my children, one who's in New Jersey with 2 of our grandchildren, and then one who's in Springfield, Virginia with 2 grandchildren. We're making a little bit more of an effort to do that a little bit more frequently. I think that that's very, very important. So please do that. Take care of your mental health. And the city manager went over, some of the organizations, and those organizations that help people are still operating. And if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out and access those organizations and get the help you need. Because people by our nature don't like being cooped up, and it's a challenge. So just be conscious of everyone's mental health and having a good outlook on this, and hopefully we'll get over this. The whole thing is to flatten this curve. We talked about that a little bit last week, and obviously that's to save lives and also to give the hospitals the time and space that the capacity that they have, and that is increasing with certain hospitals across the nation, just to give so they can deal with the increase in the number of cases, people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. Just flattening that. That's the reason that we hear it on television all the time, flattening the curve. The only other thing I would say is that the overriding priority of the City Commission, City Manager, and City staff is to do our very best to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all Leavenworth citizens. And I mentioned that we have that webpage on our website, a lot of good information, and it's very prominent if you go to our website, which it's leavenworthkansas.org. So I would urge you to do that if you have time and you have the internet connectivity. That would be a good thing to do. And then we're just going to continue to advocate as much as we can for our small businesses and nonprofits, because they are taking the brunt of this necessary state and local government actions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. But we want to do and make available information and maybe ease the way in terms of how these processes are going to work for, like, applying for small business loans. That will be possible once that bill is signed by the president, that 3rd phase of the stimulus or coronavirus relief bill that has been in the news over the last week or so. And finally, I just want to say that my thoughts and prayers go out to the county citizens who have contracted the virus, and of course, their family members. And all members of the healthcare profession, doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, nurses' aides, who are on the front end of the spear, who are doing great work, who are experts, and who are very, very courageous in terms of performing their duties and responsibilities. And remember what our health professionals have been telling us for about a week or 10 days. We stayed at work for you, please stay at home for us. So that's just a reminder. I mentioned that last week, and I think that's important. And then finally, we'll do this again on Wednesday, or? Yeah, we'll go to Wednesday next week. We don't have a meeting on Tuesday. I don't want to wait a whole week, so we'll do the same time, 10 a.m. Wednesday. I think is that the 1st of April? Whatever day, date, for next Wednesday is. Is it the 1st of April? 1st of April, April Fool's Day, but we won't fool you. We will have a Facebook Live town hall, most likely focused on this fight against the spread of COVID-19 and all the consequences that our citizens are in this city are having to adjust to. And then finally, I will just tell everyone to stay safe, stay healthy, and stay home. We look forward to talking with you next Wednesday. Good morning.